It's absolutely heartbreaking. It will bring tears to your eyes.
Once she was shot in the head, all of her life functions ended.
At the time, I didn't have any reason to believe that it was anything but a suicide.
The physical evidence is not going to lie. The body's not going to lie.
We can't ignore the possibility that what has been created here is essentially a love triangle.
It was getting very volatile. It was getting just very ugly.
We have one chance to get this right, and that's it.
A shocking murder becomes a dark mystery. The victim's body holds the key to convicting the killer. Every fiber is a clue. Every wound is a piece of the puzzle. In these cases, it's up to the medical examiner to find the crucial evidence and catch the murderer. This is Secrets of the Morgue.
I would describe Gwinnett County as a quiet, sleepy town. It is still very much a small town feel, where everybody knows everybody.
It's a beautiful neighborhood, and the houses are very nice, well-maintained.
Crime does happen, but it doesn't happen like other areas of the county.
One cold morning, something devastating happens that shakes this town to its core.
Gwinnett County 911.
My girlfriend's dead.
Hey, what do you mean by that?
She's been shot. Her son just ran over and got me. They live across the street from me.
Okay. Do you think that she can be helped?
No.
The victim is Jennifer Corbin, a 33-year-old stay-at-home mother of two.
Jennifer was universally liked. The people at her son's school, the people at their church, they all thought she was just a great person, a great mother.
Jennifer Corbin definitely took care of her boys, and she loved them with all of her heart.
Her oldest boy is the one who discovers her body.
He walked in the master bedroom. He saw some blood trickling from her nose. He started screaming, "Mom's dead, Mom's dead." He grabbed his brother and he ran across the street to a neighbor's house.
And the police responded, along with investigators and one of the assistant DAs from my office.
As officers enter the home, everything appears normal.
It looked like your typical suburban house. They had a typical family room set up, dining room set up.
There was no signs of a forced entry. There was no disarray that indicated a fight or anything like that.
But as investigators approach the master bedroom, it's clear something has gone very wrong.
We walk in at the foot of the bed, and that's when we observe Jennifer's body. I can immediately see that her body is slumped over. She is tipping over on her left side. So the right side of her body is facing up, kind of like she's sitting and then she fell down.
The strap on her nightgown was down on her right arm, off of her shoulder, as opposed to laying up against her neck.
The gun is in plain sight. It was on the right side of her, but it was not in her hand. And then we notice some blood on the temple of her right side, and a very small amount of blood coming from her nose, but it was not a long enough trickle to even go down to her mouth.
Police officers all the time respond to people who have shot themselves in their bed. The angle, the placement of the body, it was clearly a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
For Jennifer's family, it's anything but clear.
I remember Jennifer's father, Max, showing up at the house. It's completely understandable. He was very upset, and he was adamant that this was not a suicide, that Jennifer would not have killed herself under these circumstances.
It's not unusual for a family to show up at a scene and go, no, there's no way my son or daughter could not have killed themselves. It's so universal that it doesn't really mean a lot in terms of an investigation.
It's very difficult for parents to accept the fact that their child may have been suffering from depression or other mental health conditions. It's also internalized as a failure. Parents often see a suicide as an example of how they didn't do enough to nurture and love their child.
To get to the bottom of this young mother's mysterious death, investigators turn to medical examiner Dr. Carol Terry.
Typically, pathologists are portrayed as weird people who play with dead people and hang out down in the dark in the basement of the hospital. I never made a conscious decision that, oh, I want to take care of dead people. It's, I enjoy pathology. I'm good at pathology. It just so happens that my patients are deceased, and their story deserves to be told as much as anyone else's. When I'm being flippant, I will say I chose forensics because it's the perfect career for a female, because I get to have absolutely the last word.
The last word in this case is determining how Jennifer died, whether or not she shot herself or was killed by another.
You have to let the scene speak to you. The physical evidence is not going to lie. The body's not going to lie. As a medical examiner, one of my areas of expertise is in pattern recognition. The entrance wound was on the right side of Jennifer's head, kind of behind and above her ear, kind of right up in this area. Certainly, one can shoot him or herself in that position, although it is a bit unusual, and especially when you have your strap. Any woman who's tried to do anything with a bra strap that has come down her arm knows it's very difficult to raise your arm. So that is kind of like a little red flag.
That's not the only thing Dr. Terry finds troubling.
The firearm that was there with Miss Corbin that inflicted her fatal injury was a revolver, and it had 2 unfired rounds that were still in it. Women especially would say, what mother would do this knowing that her son was going to find her? What if he'd shot himself? What if he'd shot his brother? That was a big piece of the puzzle that just did not make sense.
The mystery deepens as detectives make their way through the house.
I eventually found 2 rooms, which are clearly for each of the boys. But I also find a guest bedroom upstairs. The bed is not made. I noticed that there's men's clothing scattered throughout the room, in a laundry basket and on a floor.
Jennifer's oldest son tells investigators that the man living in the guest bedroom is his father, Barton Corbin.
Barton Corbin and Jennifer Corbin were staying in separate bedrooms, so that's an immediate indication of some kind of marital issues or separation or something that's going on that is not the Leave It to Beaver family situation.
In the master bedroom on the floor, they find an open suitcase full of Jennifer's personal items.
There was also a copy of a divorce decree that was tucked under her body in the back on her left side. Her husband, Barton Corbin, had just filed divorce. He wanted to get custody of the kids.
So we needed to find out where the husband was. He was not at the scene. He was nowhere to be found.
Barton Corbin never came to the scene. Her whole family was there. Her sister was there. Her dad was there. Her brother-in-law was there. They came to get the boys, and all of us were there saying, how could you leave your kids in this situation?
These boys had seen more than they ever should have seen.
My children were also about the same age. I can't imagine as a father, if my spouse was deceased, how that would affect my children.
It's absolutely heartbreaking. It will bring tears to your eyes. But that said, it's my job as a pathologist to cut through all the emotion and interpret the physical evidence, and from there, you arrive at the truth.
Dr. Terry's team brings Jennifer's body to the Gwinnett County Morgue for autopsy.
In order to determine the manner of death, first of all, I do an examination on the remains that are available to me. We have one chance to get this right, and that's it, because then our mistakes are going to get buried or cremated and destroyed.
Right away, Dr. Terry makes a significant discovery.
The entrance wound was kind of above and behind her right ear, and the bullet almost exited, and it was kind of toward the left side of her forehead, just underneath the skin. And the path that the bullet took through the brain almost completely cut across her brainstem. And once it cut across the brainstem, you wouldn't expect her to be able to hold on to that firearm. So, given how she was positioned on the bed and the location of the entrance wound, there was no way to explain how the gun wound up at the level of her waist, underneath her hand, because her hand would not have been able to hold the gun. It's just not possible.
It's a huge revelation. Investigators send the gun to forensics for further examination.
The analysis of the gun showed no fingerprints, no hand wipings, no DNA. In order to have no fingerprints, gun would either have had to be wiped down or cleaned. The way this worked is once she was shot in the head, all of her life functions ended. It was simply impossible for her to shoot herself and then wipe the gun clean. It was clear evidence that this was not a suicide.
Investigators suspect that Jennifer Corbin's death is a homicide, staged to look like a suicide.
Whenever you have a murdered woman, you always start with the family and you work your way out. So let's say it is a spouse. You start with the husband and you get their version of events, you alibi them out. And at the end of that small part of the investigation, they're either still in the investigation or you have eliminated them.
We already had the person who was theoretically closest to her acting suspiciously, so we focused on Barton Corbin immediately. We finally reached him on his cell phone, and he was at his brother's house. He was notified of Jennifer's death. He dropped the phone, and you could hear him sobbing in the background, and he's just despondent. His brother was saying he was throwing up. He said, "We'll be down there." Several hours went by, he didn't show up. The detectives called him again. After about 6 hours, it was pretty clear he was not going to come to the scene. And from basically that point on, his brother, Bobby, became his spokesman. He didn't talk to police again that day.
Barton Corbin is a dentist with a thriving practice in Gwinnett County.
His friends and his family describe him as a great father, a hard-working family man, a rising professional, a little hot-tempered and a little foul-mouthed, but in general, just a guy you'd just like to have a beer with and hang out with.
But the deeper investigators dig, the more troubling the image of Barton Corbin becomes.
Looking at the records at the Georgia Dentistry Board, he had had a number of complaints. If something didn't go perfectly, he would get frustrated. Then he would hurt people. One woman, she was in a chair for 4 hours. He kept drilling away and cussing out his assistants and swearing at her. We had a lot of customers that left because he would lose his temper.
While investigators focus their efforts on Dr. Corbin, Dr. Terry aims to establish Jennifer's time of death.
Time of death is most critical to law enforcement as they're trying to exclude or include people as suspects in terms of checking their alibis. The sooner we examine the body after the body is found to be dead, the better estimate we can give. And my investigator did not wind up seeing the body until Saturday afternoon. So at least, let's say 8 to 12 hours after she was discovered dead.
The things that we as forensic pathologists use to assess time of death include the degree of rigor mortis, or the stiffening of the body, which occurs after death. Rigor mortis begins to set in really at the time of death. And then after 12 hours, the process reverses. The muscle tissue starts to break down, and therefore rigor mortis begins to dissipate. So that creates an added challenge in determining time of death.
So I never opined on a time of death because I couldn't narrow the window down.
With that critical fact unknown, investigators try to piece together Jennifer's final hours.
The boys told us that they had dinner, they watched TV, they went to bed somewhere around 9 o'clock. And then, of course, she was discovered early in the morning, the next morning, by her son, who wanted breakfast. And so that was the narrowest we had. So the first job was to try and establish the whereabouts of Barton Corbin in the night before and early morning hours of the date of Jennifer's death.
Barton stated that he was at a bar, a local bar in the city of Swanee. He was there with friends. He talked about eating wings and sharing a pitcher of beer and so on and so forth.
Then he claimed that he drove directly to his brother's house in Decula. That by that time it was after midnight, the house was dark, and he didn't want to wake the whole house up by banging on the door, so he slept in his truck. He claimed that he got up right at dawn, knocked on the door. His brother let him in. He had breakfast, fell asleep on the couch, and was there when he was notified of Jennifer's death.
Given Barton's alibi, investigators turned to Jennifer's personal life, searching for anyone with a motive to hurt her.
We conducted a forensic procedure that we do on computers to download all the information, the hard drive, in Jennifer's computer.
They soon discovered Jennifer has been living a secret double life through an online avatar.
Through her mother, Jennifer got into the gaming world. She introduces her to a game called EverQuest, and they begin to play together. And then they start to join in with the bigger population of players. That's how she meets Chris.
Jennifer and Chris begin emailing each other outside of the game.
It very quickly takes on a personal aspect. And by that I mean that Jennifer very quickly is willing to confess her unhappiness with her marriage. She begins to talk in detail about how much she loves her boys, but how bad things are with her husband.
When you look at Jennifer at that time, she found someone that she could truly confide in, that would listen to her feelings and her emotions and give her some advice and the love that she was essentially missing at home.
And then Chris starts to talk about his life, but he's very general about it. And then they begin to talk about the sexual aspects of it. And it's very detailed in terms of what they want to do and what they plan on doing.
3 months before Jennifer's death, Chris confesses his love, and she responds in kind.
They were basically going to be in a relationship. We're going to see each other and want to spend the rest of their lives together.
Online relationships are fraught with danger. They're designed for anonymity. You don't know who's on the other end of that IP address. They can be anything that they want to be. And if they sense that you're looking for a particular type of man, they can become that particular type of man with a couple of keystrokes.
They were emailing back and forth 50 and 60 times a day, sometimes more. We're not talking about 2 emails a day. We're talking about minute by minute. The boys would go off to school, Barton would go to the office, Jennifer would hit the computer. And then when the boys came home at around 3 or 3:30, she would get off the computer. And then a lot of times late in the evening, they would resume until 1 or 2 in the morning. So it was almost constant.
Then just 2 weeks before Jennifer's death, Chris makes a confession.
Chris sent an email that said, I have to tell you something, I'm a woman.
Catfishing is a trend that is often used in online dating. It is used by people who spend an inordinate amount of time seeking out their victims and preying upon their vulnerabilities and saying the right things to them that will get the victims to like them, to encourage more conversation.
Jennifer is devastated by the revelation that her secret boyfriend, Chris, is actually a woman named Anita.
Jennifer goes silent and won't respond to repeated requests. Talk to me, please talk to me, I love you. We can't ignore the possibility that what has been created here is essentially a love triangle. And you have to follow the possibility that Anita came into town and killed Jennifer rather than have her go back with Barton.
While working to solve the mystery of Jennifer's staged suicide, investigators uncover a secret online affair with a woman who was catfishing her.
There was a subpoena sent from my office to the internet providers, which provided us with the IP address of Chris's email. And then we were able to identify who Anita was.
They tracked down Anita in Missouri. She tells them that she and Jennifer had reconciled before her death.
There's a series of emails where basically they talk about that since they've never met, they didn't fall in love physically, they fell in love with each other's souls. And so maybe they can make it work. So then they proceed to start back up. Jennifer was planning on leaving Barton Corbin and establishing a household with Anita here in Georgia. Within the next week, Jennifer was found dead. When Anita finds out that Jennifer has been killed, she was shocked. She had all of the reactions of a person who had lost a loved one.
If she's in love with her, why would she want to harm Jennifer? They were basically going to be in a relationship and want to spend the rest of their lives together.
Not only does Anita not have a motive to kill Jennifer, her alibi is impenetrable.
We know that up until 1:30, Anita was on the phone with Jennifer. And Anita's phone was obviously in Missouri, where she resides at. So we felt comfortable because of the time frame, the distance, that Anita, it would have been impossible for her to physically be at the location. So she was ruled out.
Anita told us that on the Thanksgiving immediately prior to Jennifer's death, Barton Corbin discovered the affair. They were on their way to her family's house. They were in the car with the boys. He didn't say anything on the trip up. He didn't say anything during dinner, but he was clearly angry. He demanded that they leave early, and when they got back into the car, that's when he accused Jennifer of having an affair and actually slapped her in front of the boys. And it was at that point they separated.
Once again, investigators find Barton at the center of their case. They begin to dig into his past.
We received a call from a former classmate of Dr. Corbin's when he was in dental school in Augusta. And that witness told us, you really need to look into the death of Dolly Hearn. She was Barton Corbin's girlfriend and died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound right before they graduated from dental school.
It's a shocking piece of information.
The DA in Augusta is a good friend of mine, and so I contacted him and told him what we had, and he got the Richmond County Sheriff's Department to reopen their investigation of Dolly Hearn's death, which had originally been classified as a suicide. So all of a sudden we've got parallel murder investigations going where Corbin is the primary suspect. In the Dolly Hearn case, she suffered a gunshot wound to the head. She was in her own home. Barton Corbin was the last known person to see her alive. And in the Jennifer Corbin case, it's kind of the same thing. So clearly there were similarities.
I was looking at photographs of the crime scene that were related to Dolly Hearn's case, and I remember seeing her seated on a couch. She was sitting there, kind of lifeless, over off to the side.
Supposedly, she had shot herself in the head, yet on her body, there were areas where the blood had been swiped along surfaces. The spatter that should have been there was not there. So she did not inflict her wound and die in that position. Someone had positioned her. Miss Hearn's death occurred 14 years earlier. Apparently, the photographs were not reviewed by someone who had enough knowledge or expertise about blood spatter. And certainly the inconsistencies between the story, the injury, and the blood transfer on the body were not noticed.
Corbin managed to stonewall the investigation to the extent that I don't really think they had anywhere else to go. The similarities between Dolly Hearn's death and Jennifer Corbin's death is what we think is the motivation for the killing. That both of them informed Barton Corbin that they were going to leave him. At that point, he began a campaign against both of them of sort of harassment, even including physical violence.
Barton Corbin literally thought he had gotten away scot-free with murdering Dolly Hearn and staging it. So much that he felt emboldened because of his narcissistic ways. Really thought that he was gonna come and do it again and walk away scot-free. And I'll tell you, anybody that was wrapped around this case was gonna make sure that wasn't gonna happen.
After learning of a second suspicious death in Barton Corbin's past, detectives interviewed Jennifer's sister to find out what she knew about her brother-in-law.
It was getting very volatile. It was getting just very ugly, and Bart started acting so bizarre.
When you say bizarre, or more bizarre, I guess is the better term, what are you talking about?
Well, just harassing Jennifer, breaking it, getting into her car and trying to go through her things, stealing stuff from her purse.
When you did talk with her last, the last time that you actually spoke with her, was it face to face or was it on the phone?
She left my house. I believe the last time we talked she left my house, and I remember, to me, I compare it to the likeness of giving a drunk driver the keys, because I remember being very afraid for her. And I said, Jennifer, I really just think you should be going home.
Sometimes in investigations, when you're looking at the husband and you find a history of domestic abuse, what you're looking for as an investigator is an escalation in the degree of the assaults. It may have started with verbal threatening, and then it may have gone from that point to a slap or a punch. It may have gone after that to weapons. When you see that type of escalation in the severity of the assaults, I think it's incumbent upon an investigator to look at the possibility that it has now escalated to a murder.
3 days before her death, Jennifer phones 911.
911. You have to come up the cops to my house, please. Yes, what's going on? I just gospel dispute. What's your name, ma'am? Jennifer Corbin. He is taking off with my official belongings. He's in the middle of the car right now. And he's wearing nothing but a towel. He only has a towel on? Yep. He's doing what? He's pulling out of the neighborhood right now. Okay. What kind of vehicle is he in? Tell me what kind of vehicle he's in. He's a yellow Mustang. Has he been drinking? Do you have any weapons? No, well, I don't know. He took the shotgun out of the house, but I don't know where it is, you know? What's going on? I'm okay. Are you okay? I'm okay.
They had an argument in the morning. He left the house dressed only in a towel, carrying a shotgun, and ran over Jennifer's foot.
It's just like, this guy's a monster. I don't put that label on many people in my line of work, but I'll tell you, that guy's a monster. He really is.
Jennifer was advised to get a protective order, which she didn't want to do. She was asked whether she wanted to press charges, which she didn't want to do.
It's important that we discern what actually occurred. I want to be right. I want to make the right assessment. It speaks to my credibility, and it also speaks to obtaining justice for Jennifer Corbin and her family and her character, and for her children to know, Mommy didn't do this. You know, Mommy didn't intend to leave us. Mommy was taken. And I mean, it's an amazing responsibility.
We didn't want to have Jennifer fall through the cracks like Barton's previous victim.
I think if someone gets away with something one time, they're going to go with what they know, and they're going to try that again.
We knew that the defense was going to be she shot herself. It was set up to look like that. I mean, the narrative was going to be she was sitting in bed, her husband had just filed divorce, he was going to get custody of the kids, so she was despondent, she had a glass of wine, and she took her own life. That was going to be the narrative.
A lot of times, if you can't attack the science, you attack the individual.
Dr. Terry takes a sample of Jennifer's blood and sends it away to test for drugs and alcohol.
There were concerns about her potentially being somehow impaired or intoxicated, but her toxicology was negative for alcohol, and that she was also negative for cocaine and cocaine metabolites.
Investigators decide to challenge Barton's alibi one last time.
Barton stated that he was out with friends and then went back at some point to his brother's house. Never, ever, ever is there mention that he went by the house to check on the kids. He was adamant, basically, that he was never near the house.
We canvassed the neighborhood to try and determine if anybody saw or heard anything. Steve Como, the across the street neighbor, said that at about 2 o'clock in the morning, when Jennifer's body was found, he was working on a car in his garage, and he heard Barton Corbin's pickup truck drive up into the driveway. He said he recognized it because it had a distinctive set of mufflers and it made a particular sound. About 15 minutes later, the truck pulled out and drove away, and he saw that. So we subpoenaed Barton Corbin's cell phone records. And the cell tower data indicated that he was in his neighborhood before he went to Tequila. Now we've got Corbin at the scene. We're starting to pull apart his alibi. It's not holding, but what is the evidence that connects him to the crime?
As investigators close in on suspect Barton Corbin, Dr. Terry puts together the final piece of the puzzle.
My big fear is being wrong, because if I make a mistake, someone's life, freedom, can be at stake. So it was really, for me, the aha moment when I saw this photograph, seeing the blood coming out of her nose. Miss Corbin had blood that was emanating from her nose that went straight down in accordance with gravity. Had she been upright and then fallen over, we would have expected some fanning out of the blood or some deviation out of the nostrils instead of a straight downward path. And at that point in time, I rendered my final opinion and my final report and generated a death certificate. For Jennifer Corbin, her manner of death was homicide. She died as a result of a gunshot wound that was inflicted by another.
On December 22nd, investigators charge Barton Corbin for the murder of Dorothy Hearn. 14 days later, they charge him with the murder of Jennifer Corbin.
I remember him getting arrested, and that kind of brought it all home for us, that he's not going to get away. That was a good feeling.
Barton immediately takes on 2 high-priced defense attorneys and claims it was her online lover, Anita, not Barton, who killed Jennifer.
When this happened, it was probably just the beginning of what is now a common thing of online relationships. But it was unusual to us as investigators. It was something I'd never seen. Certainly, the defense attorneys were going to be prepared to characterize it as odd or deviant.
This case had developed national attention, so it was my understanding that the defense was going to portray Mrs. Corbin as being unstable. They were going to say that Dr. Corbin had been wrongfully accused, and all he had tried to do was love this poor, damaged woman.
Detectives fight back by sealing up any potential holes in their case.
In my mind, the key piece of evidence that we had to find out was the gun. Where did that gun come from? Could we connect it to Barton Corbin? And that's when Mr. Wilson's name comes up. Mr. Wilson worked for Barton Corbin's father. He runs a business in Troy, Alabama.
We learned that the gun was potentially either sold or given to Barton Corbin by Mr. Wilson in a recent time that they were together.
So my investigators drove to Troy, Alabama and said, "Do you know anything about this .38 caliber Smith & Wesson?" He never denied it. He just said, "I don't want to get involved." So we serve him with a subpoena to compel his testimony in Georgia. And he said Corbin had asked him for a gun and that Wilson had this pistol. He had taken it in trade for some work he had done on a lawnmower. So he said, "Here, you can have this gun." And he gave it to Corbin, and Corbin left and came back to Atlanta. And 2 days later, it's laying on the bed with Jennifer Corbin's body. So we put the gun in his hand.
With the new information about the pistol and all of Dr. Terry's findings in place, prosecutors confront Barton and his lawyers.
This was a strong forensic case. I think the key pieces of evidence were the positioning of the body based on the blood coming out of her nose. And number 2 is the entrance wound that's on the right side of her head, kind of above and behind the right ear. Number 3, knowing that I had an injury of the brainstem that almost completely cut the brainstem in half. So once the firearm was discharged, she would have no control over her hand. And there's no way you can explain or reconcile the fact that the firearm is beneath her flaccid hand, tucked into the comforter at the level of her waist. It's just not possible.
I like putting bad guys in prison. There's a great deal of satisfaction in solving a case, finding the person who did it, and making them pay for it. I mean, the look on the lawyer's face when I showed him all the documents and said, "We can put the gun in his hand," there was a great deal of satisfaction from that.
On September 15, 2006, Dr. Barton Corbin pleads guilty to the deaths of both Jennifer Corbin and Dorothy Hearn.
When he enters his plea of guilty, he's asked, did you in fact commit the offense? And he says yes. And then the judge asked him, tell me the facts of the case. And in each of the cases, he gives a summary of what he did. He did not go into the details of, I walked in the door, I went up the steps. He basically said, I intentionally went up and shot my wife in the head and then fled and then left.
I remember exactly where I was and what I was doing when I got word that Dr. Corbin had pled guilty, because I knew that this was going to be a very stressful trial. I know what I have found at the examination. I know who the prime suspect is. And for me, it's more satisfying for the person to say, yeah, y'all got me. Y'all got me.
The one thing I took away from the case is Barton Corbin's really smart. He managed to cover up a murder for 14 years. He completely deceived his own family. He's really smart, and he thinks he's really smart. But we were just smarter. And when I saw him go out the side door and knew he was going to spend the rest of his life in prison, I was the happiest guy in the whole courthouse. That was a guy that I needed to take off the street, and I was proud to do it.
In this case, here you had two innocent women. The only thing they did wrong was choose the wrong person to get into a relationship with. That's it. And they paid the ultimate price.
When you see situations like this, you know instantly that these children are parentless. They've already lost mom. Now they're gonna lose dad, and who's gonna take care of them? And I know that they have a very strong family, and I know that Jennifer's sister came forward and raised them as her own. I think we all hope that they're living a great life even without Jennifer and their dad.
If it hadn't been for the medical examiner's office working with the district attorney's office, we would have never solved this case. We would have never been able to put it together. Once she said it was murder and was able to convince us that it was a murder, then everything else grew out of that.
To me, there's nothing more satisfying than to be able to go back and resolve something that has had so many unanswered questions and provide closure, not just for the family, but for law enforcement as well. We discover the truth. That's what my job is. This is what I was meant to do.